Welcome students. Let's cover up the aspect of various types of mental retardation, the various categories of mental retardation. First we have is mild mental retardation. Now this category is from the IQ range of 50 to 70. So this is the first category after we start from 70 lower on to 50. Now in this the person is still educable. The person can go on to the category of class 4th or class 6th. The education can be till class 4th or class 6th. The person is able to utilize various self-help skills in terms of dressing himself up, in terms of feeding, doing the routine work, tying the laces, counting money. The person is able to do it. And also this person is able to manage with social skills very well. Not of course like a normal average intelligence individual, but yes, much better than the other categories. So a person with mild MR is able to have social capacity. They are able to interact with others. They are relatively able to adjust with other people. They are able to respond socially. Emotionally also their expression and their receptivity is very good. Of course better than the others and lesser than the average intelligence. They do face some difficulty in terms of emotional, like the communication aspect is relatively lesser than the average intelligence person. They also have the category of vocational guidance where they are able to take up semi-skilled work, they are able to take up unskilled work, they are able to manage their career with guidance, they are able to marry and have children. That is the aspect of career and the aspect of education as well as the aspect of marriage. Then we have the category of moderate MR. In moderate, when we look at it, it is normally ranging from 35 to 49 IQ level. Now these people are normally able to study till first or second grade. They are not able to go beyond that. We call them the trainable category. Self-help, they are able to manage partially. They face some problem where they need supervision and guidance. They require somebody constantly to supervise them when they are doing self-help skills like dressing up, eating. They do face problems. Also vocational aspect, they are also requiring a lot of supervision. They can do, they can make certain things like basket making, weaving, candle making, but they require a lot of guidance for that. Marriage as such is difficult for them, having children difficult for them. They are not able to manage so well socially, not able to respond so well emotionally because they have some limitation and deterioration in terms of their emotional abilities. Communication is difficult, receptive communication is there, but expressive is relatively limited. They have certain aspect of speech problems. They are not really able to adjust very well socially. Then we had the third category, which now starts the actual deterioration, where these people face a lot of problem, be it in terms of academics, because they are not able to study, of course, their capacities are very, very limited. The IQ range is from 20 to 35. So imagine it's like close to the lowest category of IQ level. They do require a lot of assistance. They are not able to manage their work independently, be it academic as such. We don't really expect them to do it because the capacity is limited. Self-help, again, they require a lot of assistance in terms of handling social situations, expressing emotions, again a very limited capacity. Vocational career aspect, not really able to manage very well in terms of earning or managing money transaction or traveling by themselves or time coordination. All of that gets very difficult. The last category that we have is profound mental retardation. Now such people, they have a IQ level below 20. So imagine they are normally bedridden and they are not able to manage very well. In fact, very, very limited capacity to manage, and they don't really survive long also. They normally do not extend on more than 15 years of age. They have a very limited duration of life because they are actually not really having any IQ to survive and sustain themselves. That is about mental retardation. Let's move on to the next topic, substance use disorder. This basically refers to the fact that somebody gets addicted to a particular substance. Now, a substance can be anything. It can be Facebook addiction, it can be any particular fluid addiction, it can be coffee and tea somebody is addicted to. So any kind of addiction, TV addiction. Here we talk about the fact that, why do people get addicted? What is the reason behind addiction? Why is somebody so dependent on a particular substance and gets so much enjoyment and stimulation that is not able to be happy without that external outside situation or stimuli? Now, a lot of times people get a high enjoyment when they take in a particular substance. Let's talk about the majorly addictive or majorly abused substance, which is alcohol. Here we'll understand the different categories of substance use, what are the meanings, but let's understand why people get addicted to alcohol. Now, a lot of people believe that, alcohol is a stimulant, it gives a lot of energy, but it's actually a myth, because alcohol depresses the brain. Initially, it definitely gives a high, that is why people get addicted to it. But later on, it depresses the brain, it makes one sad, lowers the capacity to do the different tasks. It has a varied range of behaviors which we'll just discuss. It normally starts from adolescence, where children start experimenting with different kind of alcohol. Now the concept of hookah is very, very highly interesting to children and adolescents, where they go for hookah bars and everything. It is also addiction, because in that also the level of stimulation, the level of addiction, the level of substance which is addictive is there. So it's not that it doesn't have nicotine content, it does have nicotine content. And understanding that, there's an emptiness in the person, because of which the person wants to dissolve all the worries, all the stresses, all the pain into alcohol. Now, it is very, very socially acceptable drug, and that is the reason why peer pressure plays a major role, where children and adolescents start up with it just because they want to try out with their friends. They don't want to be isolated, that, every friend is trying and I am having the courage to say no to it because I don't believe in it. And that is how, where they start up with it. And, nobody starts with the thought that I am taking a peg and I am going to get addicted. But that is how it happens, because the brain gets used to it. The brain develops this dependency. So just because it is socially acceptable and everybody is trying it out in a party doesn't mean that you also have to get into it just because everybody is getting. You don't believe in it, you have every right and you should say a no to it, because you know that it can get very addictive. And you've seen the condition of people who have this addiction. It's like the brain is used to that substance. So the brain doesn't understand the concept of willpower, that they think of leaving it and they are able to leave it. The brain has been used to that pleasure for so many years that to get the same amount of pleasure, the brain would want an increased capacity. And that is where people even go on to trying out different kinds of drugs, where they're not satisfied with one, they are now getting bored of it. The brain wants a different, a higher level drug. So they try out at different kinds, and it's very difficult then to come out of it. It's a revolving door phenomena where the person wants to give it a try, but then the brain doesn't support. There are withdrawal symptoms, and the person's physical symptoms like nausea, like a lot of stomachache, headache, vomiting sensation, all these aspects do not let the person leave it very easily. So the person is under control of that particular substance. And let's understand the three meanings which are important to understand substance abuse. See, there's one concept of use and there's one concept of abuse. Use is normal. But for any addiction, nothing is normal. For any substance to which the brain is getting addicted, nothing is normal. It is always abuse then, where the person's family life gets affected. A lot of consequences, the person's life deteriorates totally. Because of the excessive intake of a particular substance, it turns out to be maladaptive, problematic behavior pattern. Initially, a substance produces a lot of changes in the consciousness level, altered level of feeling, altered level of thinking. You get a high, you feel very confident and happy, but later on the actual problem starts. So when we talk about the different kinds of substance abuse, we will cover under it heroin abuse, alcohol abuse, cocaine abuse, starting from alcohol. But let's understand what is this major talk about substance dependency. Now, dependency covers three concepts under it. One, when the person's brain has such a strong craving for a particular substance because it has been so much used to it. Now, let's understand one thing very clearly, that substance abuse is a disorder. It is a mental illness. It needs treatment. It is not that the person will decide one fine day getting up that I'm facing so much problem because of this substance in every area of my life, be it financial, be it emotional, be it family. Nobody supports me, nobody understands me. I am only into the substance, I've left my work. It is not that the person decides and get over it. The person requires proper treatment like any other mental disorder. So it requires a very systematic treatment at a de-addiction center where the person will be rehabilitated back to normal. So we talk about abuse concept is basically different consequences on the person's life, where the family gets ruined, the family doesn't accept the person, relationships are spoiled, damage financially at the workplace, emotionally, confidence, self-concept, everything, there's a problem. Also dependence, craving, it starts with there's an intense desire where the person cannot survive without this particular drug. There are two more concepts, tolerance and withdrawal. Tolerance is once you start at a certain level, 1 peg a day, moves on, increases on, and ultimately 10 years, 12 years down the line, the person is starting with so much amount of alcohol because it has increased over time. The brain is not satisfied with the same level all throughout life. Once the brain gets a high from this, will increase on and the level keeps on increasing. That is known as tolerance. The brain develops a tolerance for it. Then we have withdrawal under dependence is the physical symptoms. So many symptoms where the person wants that drug at any cost. If doesn't get it, the brain and the body respond and react to it. Then we have the major aspect of compulsive alcohol taking, the alcohol dependence, where abuse and dependence is happening. People take a very large amount of alcohol regularly, and then when they don't take it because they're so dependent, they experience the withdrawal symptoms. Next category, in fact, in alcohol, when we think about it, we understand the effects of alcohol, what damage does it do. Like initially, when alcohol or ethyl alcohol enters the body, at that time it is from the blood straight away picked up by the central nervous system, and the person's motor abnormality starts. There is a lot of intoxication happening. The person is not able to maintain a motor balance or a motor coordination. Motor movement slows down. The person's brain gets inhibited. So the person feels very confident and happy and speaks out whatever he wants, gets very friendly also. Emotionally, the person is inhibited, so shares a lot, talks a lot. So emotional damage is there, then motor damage is there. In fact, it is believed that when people take alcohol, they sleep well. But that's also a myth. Once the brain is inhibited, their sleep gets disturbed. A lot of people have a tendency that they would take a certain amount before they go off to sleep. So then morning when they get up, they have a hangover, they have a problem again. That is about alcohol and its effects. Let's move on to the heroin abuse and dependence. Now, the most important danger of heroin abuse is the respiratory center slows down. The breathing pattern slows down, which can lead to major death. And also, it is a very, very strong substance which results in, this dependency is very harmful, because once the person has started from gateway drugs of smoking and drinking, the person then moves on this higher level drugs of heroin and cocaine, which cause a major dependency and a major damage to the person, which is almost irreversible, because the person has tried a higher level drug, which the body totally goes under the control of it and doesn't want anything else, just wants those empty calories to be dependent on. Next we have is cocaine abuse and dependence. The major problem with cocaine, although it affects all the areas of life and just deteriorates the person's life completely, but the major aspect is about the feelings of depression, anxiety, sleep problems. These are the major problems remain apart from the other complexities that happen in life. That is about the different kinds of drugs. We also have the names of different drugs, which helps us understand what are the various categories apart from these three. We have amphetamines, which are stimulants, which are taken by players a lot of time. You must have heard of doping, where the players are caught for amphetamines, where they get sudden flush of energy to perform their task perfectly. Also, some students abuse it. Of course, it leads to a lot of problem later on, because the bloodstream then has so much amount of it, and then life later on becomes a problem. Also, we have sedatives, which people get very dependent on. They are not able to sleep without taking those sleeping pills or sedatives. We also have nicotine, which is very, very common there in cigarettes, there in pan and tambaku. all these things have nicotine content. We also have opioids, particularly the morphine injections. The worst form then we have is hallucinogens, which produce hallucinations. We have the category of LSD under it. That's about it for substance abuse. Let's just summarize the chapter, what we have done till now. We've understood the concept of what is meant by disorder, the definition of it. We moved on to the history of disorders, how did understanding of disorders develop. Then we moved on to what are the factors which influence, what are the factors which are underlying the disorders, covering the various psychological perspectives and approaches. Then we started with the different kinds of disorders, starting from anxiety disorders, 5 categories under it. We moved on to somatoform disorders, which also had 4 categories under it. Then we covered the dissociative disorders, having 4 categories under it. Then we moved on to the aspect of mood disorders and suicide, why it occurs and what are the different categories under it, 3 categories under it. Then we moved on to the concept of schizophrenia, the extreme form of mental illness. And then we understood the various aspects of childhood developmental and behavioral disorders, under which we covered internalizing and externalizing disorders. Also including under it was eating disorders and mental retardation. And then finally we moved on to the substance abuse, how a particular substance is used and misused, leading to maladaptive functioning of a person. That's about it for the chapter on disorders. Thank you.